Well, welcome everybody to this webinar on the Executive PhD program on private sector development in emerging economies from the University of Maastricht, Maastricht School of Management. My name is Diederik de Boer. I'm an associate professor of sustainable business development at the university and also the director of the Executive PhD program on private sector development. For today, we would like to go over to provide you a little bit of an introduction on the Executive PhD program, about its research focus, some information on the program, the expertise which we have as MSM, the Expert Center on Emerging Economies on Private Sector Development. I will go a little bit also in depth in some of the tools we use for our research trajectories. Provide you a little bit an overview of examples of research topics used by existing PhD students. Then we dive more into the program information, the application process, fees, some more examples of the PhD degree itself, and then Q&A. Well, first of all, the Executive PhD program, as it stands now, for emerging economies, is a great program which can be combined with the career you're and the work you're doing right now, and further also develop your career. It gives the possibility to get more expertise in certain areas which might be of interest for your working career, or if you would like to switch career. The Executive PhD program on private sector development is one of the it's a unique program focusing definitely on this issue of private sector development, and it gives you then also the opportunity to become part of an interesting alumni network, which we already have as Maastricht School of Management for more than 70 years, but also with the University of Maastricht School of Business and Economics. Talking about the Maastricht School of Management and the PhD program itself, it's then of importance that it's fit in at least in the research framework which we set up as the Maastricht School of Management. As you can see here, we have 3 pillars in which we are focusing our research at. It's on innovation and partnerships. The second pillar relates to leadership and entrepreneurship development, and the third pillar research relates to financial development. And all of these pillars relate also to cross-sectoral issues like societal impact, green inclusive economy transition and digitalization. And finally, it also have often a focus and input of research topics which relate to either universities or vocational educational development. So our research itself of the Maastricht School of Management is fitting within this framework, but it doesn't mean that you can go without this framework as well, as long as it's within the framework of private sector development, and that is, I think, important. So the main areas and topics should relate to the 6 themes mentioned here below. First of all, it's private sector development in general, and for that one, also the next part of the presentation will dive a little bit more into that. A second pillar relates to the issue of entrepreneurship, innovation, and digitalization. The third pillar relates to educational development. The fourth one to globalization, value change, and industrial policy. The fifth one to inclusive and sustainable development. And the sixth one to leadership, change, and organizational development. As Maastricht School of Management, we are now since 2 years part of the University of Maastricht. And that means also that we can team up with our PhD program to have supervisors not only coming from Maastricht School of Management itself, but also from within the Faculty of Business and Economics, or from the 5 centers which the School of Business and Economics, we call it the Faculty of Business and Economics, consists of about. So in general, there are 9 departments and 5 centers. The 5 centers stands for Maastricht School Sustainability Institute. We have an organization focusing on innovation and technology. It's called UNU Merit. And we have a program called UMIO, focusing on lifelong learning. We have a center focusing on labor market analysis, ROA, and finally Maastricht School of Management. And I started to provide you with the Maastricht School of Management research framework, but showing you also the 6 research themes we're focusing on. That's not what we do as MSM alone, but we're also borrowing and working closely together with one of the supervisors from one of the 5 centers or the 9 departments. Maastricht School of the University of Maastricht is a little bit younger than the Maastricht School of Management. It's now about 40 years of age. However, there is an interesting network of students, about 23,000 students overall. And as Maastricht University, we're also quite international. I think that 60% of our student population comes from outside of the Netherlands. I have here written also that full-time PhD program as the School of Business and Economics, as the Faculty of Business and Economics. We run 1 full-time PhD programs and 2 executive PhD programs, of which this is one, and the other one is focusing more on topics related to policy and innovation. As I mentioned, Maastricht School of Management is one of the oldest institutions, part of the University of Maastricht. We were established already in 1952 at Delft. It receives also contribution to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it has also the mandate to focus on economies in the global south. It's one of the 7 institutions in the Netherlands which has this earmark and this support from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in which we, as the Maastricht School of Management, are focused on managerial issues in the global south. As Maastricht School of Management, we are divided into 2 departments. One department relates to management education, and another one relates to management development and research. And myself, I'm heading the last department on management development, which consists of this PhD program, but also on the trajectory which relates to capacity building programs. As Maastricht School of Management, we are active in more than 50 countries around the world. And over the 70 years, we built up an alumni portfolio of 21,000. And as mentioned before, we merged with the university in September 2022. So the executive PhD program also started as of 2022. As before, we had a doctorate of business administration, but we transformed that to a PhD program, which then started in May 2023 for the first time, and the second enrollment will take place this month, May again. Well, talking about private sector development, I think if we're talking about private sector development, it's also important to understand what it is. It's a term what is mainly used also in focusing on emerging economies. And as a program, we use this definition here of the enterprise development institution. So it's a range of strategy aiming to establish markets that function vibrantly and fairly, providing finally inclusive and sustainable economic opportunities. So it's a definition in which, on the one side, we focus on competitiveness, but on the other side, it's also trying to do that in a sustainable and an inclusive way. And for the record, emerging economies, we define it as low and lower middle income countries, according to the World Bank criteria. Talking about private sector development and also trying to build up our knowledge infrastructure in the field of private sector development, it's important to to take as a foundation for this program 3 mega trends, which we see happening and which are coming back in many of the research topics which we're dealing with. First of all, it's sustainability. The second one is digitalization, and the third one is geopolitics, politics. Sustainability, we will dive into that a little bit more later during this presentation. And digitalization, it comes also to the forefront if we're also addressing the different examples of PhD trajectories in which we see more and more interest of students in the field of AI, artificial intelligence, or computer-based learning. And in that sense, it's also interesting to note that we have a special department and units focusing on artificial intelligence at the University of Maastricht, in which we are also working closely together on this topic. Maybe also interesting to mention that on the 23rd of May, we're organizing an academic conference on the future of work. And that also relates a lot to this issue of digitalization. What impact does this have on the future of work in the world? Finally, there is this topic of geopolitics, which we see more and more happening. Is it important for businesses? Is it important for countries? Is it important for regions to choose sides in this more polarized world? Do we have to look more into what is happening in the USSR, in Russia, or in China, vis-a-vis what is happening in Europe and in the USA? So for us, as working in the global South, then the question comes up: do we need to choose sides? And we see that topic also coming up more in the different research areas chosen by students. Talking about private sector development in emerging economies, we should address it from looking at challenges and opportunities. On the one side, trying to develop the private sector, we have challenges to overcome in terms of technology. The global South is often less technology savvy. Weaker infrastructures in terms of roads, in terms of communication channels, in terms of water infrastructure, etc. We have to deal with issues like global technology monopolies as well. Do we have certain IT networks dominating the market? Do we have certain energy networks dominating the markets? And to what extent are we then dealing with these monopolies also in the global South? On the other side, there are, of course, then also interesting opportunities related to this. In these emerging economies, we have to invest less in legacy systems of the old economy, like, for example, fixed telephone lines or fixed pipelines, etc. We have the possibility of leapfrogging, jumping immediately into setting up structures related to green and circular economies, and build that into our policy network. Just coming back from Kenya, we're becoming also in the global South less dependent on fossil energy. Many of these countries, like in Kenya, for example, are already for more than 90% green. So that's also interesting to see what it then means also to become less dependent on fossil energy as an opportunity for the future, and to become possibly then in this way also more sustainable. And of course, the opportunity as well lays in the fact that we in the global South can learn from mistakes from others and use that for leapfrogging. So looking at these challenges and opportunities in the private sector, it's then also important to look what are the different visions behind it. Where would we like to steer the private sector towards? I just came out of a workshop on their inner development goals. Since 2 years, within the international community, people say, well, we're going too slow in this change, in this transformation, what is going on. The SDGs are not going to be reached. So therefore, we need to think about inner development goals, so to see how we can relate also as a future leader towards ourselves, to our own norms and values, but also to our environment. And in order to relate to your environment, then it's interesting to use, for example, this framework from McKinsey, that you have to realize that there are three different frameworks in which transition can be done. First of all, it's of course maintaining the status quo. The second one is focusing on certain possibilities to become more disruptive in terms of innovation. And the third one is relating to the regenerative cultures, to come up with a world which is also sustainable and robust for our next future generations. Well, we know that transition is this transition is a difficult one, and therefore in many of these trajectories we focus on, as we call it, the H2 plus trajectories. It's a vision and an innovational framework what sits in between H3 and H2. And if we're trying to aim for that transitional vision, we try to relate that also to the seven transformative pathways which we identified in the emerging economies. First of all, it's relating to the issues of agricultural driven transformation. To what extent can we provide value addition also in the different economies in the global south? High production can support agro processing. Can we become able? Is it possible for us to finally create, for example, our own chocolate brand without trying to export raw materials? So can we have a transformative pathway in the field of agriculture? The second one relates to local content and local participation. For example, in the mining sector, many of the mining companies are still housed within in the West, in Australia, in Canada, in Europe. But is it also possible to create more local content, but also more local participation from a governance point of view? I.e., can you develop your own large-scale mining companies? The third one relates to the service sector. I think there we see also a lot of interest from the different from different students, focusing on all kinds of innovation trajectories within the financial sector or in the ICT sector related to AI, for example. The fourth one relates to export-oriented manufacturers. We're trying to come up with bigger markets, more opportunities to set up our products and try to see to what extent we can join market forces. For example, the East Africa community, I think, they're now talking again by enlarging the East Africa community by incorporating also the market in Ethiopia together with the market which is there already, with Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, Somalia. The fifth one relates to the enhancing of the infrastructure. So given the rapid urbanization, what has this for impact on the infrastructure itself? And can we do more on for example, town planning? And to what extent is this infrastructure also a key to provide more rapid access to future innovative pathways, as mentioned in the previous slide? Coming up very much also in many emerging economies is the creative industry. So the Bollywood, the Nollywoods, but also the service sector related to ICT call centers, but also recently related more to marketing and AI is something what pops up all around the world and gives great opportunities in order to transform economies. And finally, it's also this issue of tourism, trying to make use of your comparative strength, which a country in emerging economy might have, and invest in that sector in order to also focus on many people who could have a job in that sector. So these formative pathways, which in general are coming back in the different research trajectories which we have. Well, looking at these pathways, then it's important to look at issues of competitiveness on the one side and sustainability on the other side, and see how these worlds can be linked. And in order to understand how they can be linked, of course, first of all, we need to understand what kind of competition we're talking about. Are we talking about competition at the enterprise level? How can businesses become more competitive in relation to other businesses? And for example, by focusing on value upgrading. Or are we talking about competition at the country level or at the regional level? Or at the local cluster level? Enterprises together do much more better than those who are not part together. So this whole clusters thinking is linked to this notion of competitiveness. Parking this issue of competitiveness and then bringing in also the notion of sustainability. And talking about sustainability, we define sustainability often, and that everything we do should be also possible for the future generation, and should be future-proof for the future generation. In order to give it hand and feet, we use also these triple bottom line approach by focusing on environmental issues, social issues, societal issues, and economical issues to become more sustainable and inclusive for the future. Talking about private sector development from these three different layers, it's important then also to understand the institutional context in which the private sector is functioning. The traditional institutional context for private sector development relates to these economic foundation actors, as put in here in this pyramid. And the economic foundation actors do consist then of 5 different actors. First of all, well, maybe before we move there, I mean, we also have then the societal foundation actors, as I mentioned, as part of sustainability as well. And then finally, you have also the environmental foundation actors. And these layers, these 3 layers together, form the supportive institutions which are required if we would like to look for inclusive, sustainable business. So the more we have this institution in place, the better we can reach for a private sector which is inclusive and sustainable. The circle around it relates to the market surrounding these institutions, in which the businesses do interact with, and has also, of course, are also important for the future development of inclusive, sustainable business. Well, diving more into these economic foundation actors. So if we're looking at these economic foundation actors, the traditional institutions for private sector development, then we're talking first of all about finance, access to finance. So these are prerequisites for private sector development. People, businesses should be able to access different sources for financial development. The second one in terms of private sector development is the issue of R&D, research and development. So you should be able to constantly innovate, and in order to innovate, you need to have R&D capacities in the region, in your company. And that means also that you're going to look, for example, at the role of R&D or the role of university. So is your region, are you able to provide for enough research and development skills and know-how in order to reach innovation, what is required? It's not only about research and knowledge, but it's also about the skills. So you need also the hands. So if you do not have enough people working for you with the required skills, you get also nowhere. So there we're talking about vocational training centers. So they should provide for enough skills. So the quality of these vocational training centers is crucial as well. And finally, it relates also to policies. We need to have good and sound policies in place to facilitate the innovation and private sector development. And finally, also the infrastructure itself. So we need to have roads to the markets. We need to have communication channels towards new markets, etc., etc. So these 5 actors, finance, research and development, infrastructure, skills, and policy, together are forming the economic foundation actors, which is important for private sector development. But these alone are not important. So what we found out is that private sector development depends also a lot on societal foundation actors. Societal foundation actors do relate to issues, first of all, of safety. I mean, we should have the possibility to transport our goods in a safe way. We should not be hampered by terrorism attacks. But we notice as well that the societal foundation actors for private sector development are important also in the field of education. So we need to have the possibility of to read and write in order to progress, to become part of the vocational training center, and in order to be able also to understand the different products, what people can buy. So these are the educational literacy institutions are important as well. So primary educational institutions. The second part is related to health. So health institutions are important as well. If people are all the time sick, or we cannot guarantee public health, that also has a negative effect on private sector development. The third one is safety. I start with that one. And finally, also food security is important. People need to provide and to have the possibility to have enough food to be able to think, to work, and to deal and to become part of private sector development. I mentioned here on the right side also how we build up these statistics and how we use also these foundation to measure also the dynamics of these different institutions. And our research will provide by the end of this year the first reports in order to triangulate the different institutions with each other towards health and or inclusive and sustainable environment. And that's the last point, I think, is environment itself. We make use here of the Environmental Performance Index developed by Yale and Columbia University from the United States, which is built upon 3 institutions, 3 actors. One relates to environmental health, for example, biodiversity. The other one relates to the ecosystem vitality. So people look into the air quality of the different areas, and finally also the policy itself. So climate change mitigation policies, to what extent are they in place? And in this way, we can also, by using this database, also incorporate environmental issues, which more and more are becoming a crucial actor within private sector development. Just to finish this focus on private sector development, in order to analyze private sector development, I just provided you with a framework which you can use to analyze the supporting institutions for private sector development. But it's also important to understand the different ways of how products are ended up at the market. And for that reason, you can, of course, use the GVC methodology, in which there are 4 types of value change, from very simple to the left side to very advanced ones on the right ones, in which more and more many companies are also part of it. So from input supplier finally to recycler. And I think that's another tool which can be used in the different researchers, which you can think about. Another tool To that is also the issue of public-private partnerships for private sector development / triple helix approach. So the triple helix approach stands for how government and businesses, government and profit, but also universities or not-for-profit organizations are working together to create finally the innovative solutions for society. And that's another tool which comes more and more forward, right? The setting up of the different ecosystems in the field of energy, in the field of agriculture, for finally local economic development. Well, all these things can become together, and I think this is a nice picture in which this presentation shows you on the left side the competitive resources. So how can I become and make use of the competitive and the comparative advantages in my region as a business? It relates also to the value chain, and from production side finally to the market, and also to what extent we need to team up with other businesses or with other public institutions to finally create the niche we're looking for in order to create finally inclusive, sustainable business, which on the right side, the institutional environment, which stands for the pyramid as depicted in the beginning of this presentation. Yeah, coming now to the examples of research topics which commonly are being used by the different students. So this is just an example which I would like to show you. First of all, it's a student is focusing on industry platforms for emerging markets and accelerator for private sector development and economic progress for the global south, as here's diving into the energy platforms setting up at the moment in Eastern Europe, and to what extent that is, what are the best practices of these different platforms, what he is researching at the moment. The second one relates to a completely different topic, relates to university rankings on higher education, within higher education, and how that relates also to the higher education policy in the GCC countries, so Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc., and how these policies are reshaping the higher education in the region, and to what extent does this focus still on inclusiveness, or is it just providing for the opposite of inclusion? The third topic here is addressing polarities while serving a social cause, alignment of upward and downward accountability in NGO funder beneficiary relationships in Suriname, where the student focusing on projects within the private sector development and see how the performance relates finally also to the accountability function of NGOs itself, and is there a conflict? The fifth topic relates to SME lending systems and private sector development. So what kind of new, it's more of a fiscal topic as well, financial topic, to what extent also, I think in this case, African markets can make use within the global lending system more of local currencies, and what kind of basket do we think about in order to try finally private sector development? And the sixth one is relating to the service robots within bars and restaurants, and what it has on the future of work, what kind of impact it has on future of work, and in this case, the case of Egypt is studied. I would like to finalize my webinar with a quote from Hayum Chang, in which he says that equality of opportunities is not enough unless we create an environment where everyone is guaranteed some minimum capabilities through some guarantee of minimum income, education, and healthcare. We cannot say that we have fair competition. When some people have to run a 100-meter race with sandbags on their legs, the fact that no one is allowed to have a head start does not make the race fair. Equality of opportunity is absolutely necessary, but not sufficient in building a generally fair and efficient society. I think this shows nicely how we what we would like to achieve with our PhD program on private sector development. Thank you so far for this the focus on private sector development. Then I would like now to give the floor to Iris Weijenberg, who will provide you more insights in the logistics of our PhD program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diederik. My name is Iris. I'm the admissions officer for the Executive PhD program, and we will look a bit into the program information, the admission requirements, and a few other things. How does year one look like? What do you do there? In year one of the program, we have 4 workshops organized. 2 are on campus in Maastricht, and 2 are online. So the workshops on campus, they are about 3 days, and there's one in May and there's one in November. The online days is one online day in September and February. So in the first year of your program, you will work on your research proposal. So you will be reading a lot, and by the end of that year, you will complete your research proposal. Also in that year, you will be matched with supervisors, and that will be at least 2 supervisors who will then, work with you through the whole study. And after 12 to 15 months after the start of the program, the supervisory team will evaluate your progress. And if your progress is good, then so you have a successful assessment of your research proposal, then that is a go for going into the second year. That brings me to the next slide about year 2 and all the consecutive years. So each following year, we will have 1 on-campus workshop, again, 3 days, and the other 3 workshop days will be online, 1 day online. The on-campus workshop, again, will be in May, and the on-campus September, November, February. When you are on campus here for the workshops, that is also a good way to get to know your fellow students, talk to faculty, receive feedback on your work, and also network with your fellow PhD students. You can meet your supervisors when you are on campus and to evaluate your progress. The general timeline of the program consists of 4 years. But the experience is that most students need, most PhD candidates need a bit more time. So you can take up to 7 years to complete the program without an extension. And what you see here on the slide, in case of exceptional circumstances, you can take an extension up to a maximum of 10 years for the total duration of the program. On the next slide, it's a bit about your profile. Diederik, please, to the next slide.
It's not
You're
going.
Trying.
It's not going. Strange. Maybe you talk. I can.
Okay. So on the profile. So what kind of candidates are? Okay, here it is. Yes. What kind of candidates are we looking for? So we're looking for people with a completed master degree, and you should have strong academic records, professional or volunteer experience. You should be, let's say, into the academic research, and you have a special interest in the private sector development. We welcome candidates from all over the world with a wide variety of backgrounds, cultures, and disciplines. The candidates in the program, they all have they are working. Some full-time, some part-time, some are self-employed, others are consultants. So that means that they have to combine the study with work. So it would be good for you as a PhD candidate that your employer supports you in, let's say, that could be in several ways. It could be like allocating time, so flexible working hours, but maybe also that you have access to data, because you also need data during your study. So it is, let's say, very welcome if your employer supports you during your study. However, if you say, okay, I'm going to do this by myself, then that's also fine with us. But mention then in the application process, there's one tab where you have to upload your employer's form. And there you, if you are really supporting yourself and you don't want to, let's say, that your employer is involved, then you upload there that you will do this all by yourself. But again, it would be good if the employer supports you. That brings us to the application procedure. We use an online application system. And you can see a picture here on the screen. And this all goes very smooth. So you start your application, you upload some documents, and so on and so on. And if you have any then you can always contact me and I will guide you through the online application procedure. The application deadline, that's important for you to know, 1st of December 2024. So if you want to be included in the evaluation round for the next intake, then make sure that your application is submitted before September 1st. So let's say every application submitted later will not be included. So keep in mind that deadline, and that's really a hard deadline. That brings us to the application requirements. Here you will see a whole list. I'll just go through a few of them. Application requirements are at least a master degree in a relevant academic field. You should have basic understanding of mathematics, statistics, economics, business administration, and so on and so on. Important in the application is your motivation letter. So your motivation letter should really be strong, that the admissions board, let's say, can really read why you are into this program and why you want to do a PhD. We also ask for 2 reference letters. That is not a letter that you have to ask from a referee, but it's just a link in the application program and in the application system. So you just fill out there the email address of the referee, and he or she will get a link and replies to us. Again, here that letter from your current employer, or if your employer is not involved, just upload a statement there that you support yourself. And very important in that whole application process is the expression of interest, as we call it. And the next slide will tell a little bit more about the expression of interest. So what does it look like? It's about, let's say, 3, 4, 5 pages, but not more. We don't want, let's say, a whole a PhD proposal of 40 pages. No, that's what we're not looking for that in the beginning. So we want like let's say a couple of pages with an introduction to the study, literature review, the methodology, feasibility, and also if you have some references used in that. So up to, let's say, 4 or 5 pages, write your first research ideas in that expression of interest. There's a template that you can find on the website. And that brings us to reviewing of the applicants. So the admission deadline, that is the 1st of December. And then what is the process? The process is then the assessment of the application documents done by me. And in case I need anything else from you, then I will contact you, or if something is not clear in your in the documents, then I will send you or contact you via mail. Then there will be an assessment of the application by the Board of Admissions. The next step will be that the candidates who are selected for an interview, that they will be contacted. That will be somewhere end of January 2025. Then interviews are planned for February 2025. And after that, the final decision about selection is taken. And then the program will start in May 2025. And of course, there are also some fees. Year one is 9,000 euros. All the subsequent years are 7,000 euros. The application fee, that's non-refundable, that's 95 euros. And that's the last step in the application process. So when you go through the online application, then the last step is paying the application fee, and then you can submit. And again, the application deadline here is the 1st of December 2024. And that brings us to the last thing. We get lots of questions about the degree. What does the degree look like? What is mentioned on it? Because the program is called Executive PhD. Some leads, they ask us, like, is executive mentioned on the degree? Is the area mentioned on the degree? No, it's not. This is an example of a PhD of Maastricht University. So what is mentioned there is it's in Latin. That's a all sorts of sentences, but what is mentioned there is your name and the title of your dissertation. So, and I think it's really good that leads know that not online is mentioned on the degree and not executive is mentioned on the degree. So that brings us to, brings me to the end of my session, and we will dive now, I think, into the questions, the Q&A.
Yeah, I think so too. I have them here. Maybe we read them aloud. So
yes.
The first one, my application failed. Is there a recommended format for the proposal, Iris?
Your application failed. What is recommended format for the proposal? Yes, there is. So we have like a template for the expression of interest. So that is you can download that from the website.
Next one. Hello. Do you accept credit transfers from other universities? I think the minimum requirement is having a master degree in a recognized field. And the next one also, is it a PhD by researcher only, or there is coursework plus research? So I think the second one, oh, you want to answer? It's fine. Iris, go ahead.
Yeah. Because I get these questions a lot also from people candidates I'm talking to. So there are no assignments, there are no exams. That's important to know. But there will be sometimes during the workshops. Then there will be, let's say, a workshop refreshing your mind on quantitative techniques or on qualitative techniques or things like that, but there are no assignments and no exams.
Next question, what is the difference between DBA and executive PhD? Well, I think it's very simple. In the Netherlands, the DBA is not recognized by the Dutch government, hence also the focus on the PhD. And an executive PhD or a normal PhD, like Iris already mentioned, there is no difference. It's just all the PhD needs to finally adhere to the quality standards, which we believe are important to fulfill a sound research. Next one, what are the major courses taught through the program?
I think that's already answered. There are no real courses. How we have these workshops on campus or and online.
Yeah, but still, I mean, all core courses do relate, of course, then to depending on the deficiencies of the students. So we might dive more into the quantitative side of research techniques and methodologies, or on the qualitative, or a mixture of both, depending still on the quality of the students. But we do look into also what kind of background the students bring with them for their PhD. So for us, it's also important that people understand what it is to do research, and that they also attended courses in terms of qualitative and quantitative research methods. Which actually, Iris, we also provide this diploma program, right, on research methods.
Yeah, are the RMS online program, and it is expected to start in September 2024. So this September.
If you're interested, you can sign up for that 3-month program. So depending also on your background and if that's required or not. Who would be the professors overseeing the PhD? That depends, of course, then on the topic, as I indicated as well. I mean, depending on your topic, you will assign a team of 2 professors from the university.
Okay, the next question is about again about the employer statement, what I was talking about, and I already said it's not mandatory if you support yourself. So I think that question is answered.
Next one, can I study parallel to another PhD study? I interpreted that as doing 2 PhDs, and that is difficult as within Maastricht we do not also accept candidates who do have already a PhD within the field of economics and business. However, if you have a PhD in a different field, then it's still possible to apply for another PhD. Okay,
the next question by Mavis is already answered. It's again about employer statement.
Okay, and then can I publish academic research papers and independently lead parts of the research under my own PhD title? Will I be eligible to collect points in Elsevier? Definitely. I mean, I think we stimulate the researchers and the candidates to work on research output as much as possible, and depending also on who you work with. But in general, I mean, the person who did most of the work is the first person on the research article submitted, and then we get a second one and possibly a third one. But that's also something what is being done in close consultation with your supervisors. And will I be eligible to collect points in Elsevier Academia.com rankings? Yeah, you are.
Diederik, that also brings me to, let's say, the output of the dissertation. That's maybe nice to still mention that it can also be paper-based.
Yeah, right. So either still it's possible within the University of Maastricht to focus on an article-based research. So preferably 3 articles. But these articles need to be in the pipeline of different journals, but it's not a strict requirement to be published already. One, and like Iris said, the other possibility is there also to provide just to come up with a monograph, and what is not article based.
Okay, the next question is about a research proposal. Yes, one should have a preliminary research proposal to apply.
Doesn't mean, of course, that you have to stick to that, because also in consultation with potential supervisors, you might further fine tune it or even change it if it's not feasible. But
These are first research ideas, but that should be there.
Yeah, but it should also be, that's what I wanted to mention. I mean, we're looking at it, and it also provides us with some idea of how well you understand research. Then the next question, is the emerging markets economy a fixed requirement? Yeah, well, as I mentioned in the going over the different research topics of PhD chosen already, I mean, we give preference to people choosing topics of emerging markets or linking, for example, bringing in emerging markets in their research topics, but also research related to Eastern Europe do qualify, for example. If your PhD topic, idea, concept focuses on the EU within the digital entrepreneurial landscape, would this then not be in line with the offering? Yeah. Okay, so I mean, this is questionable. It depends then also on the topic itself. The EU is broad, so part of it we classify as lower income or middle low income countries. We do have students focusing on countries like Bulgaria, Romania, and we allow them to do so. So it depends a little bit on what is coming in. It's not a complete stop, I would say.
Okay, the next question from Eugene is again about employer support, so that's answered. Then there is a question like, as an alumna of MSM, will the application process differ from other applicants? No, it's exactly the same.
Then is there a requirement for publishing the PhD paper for obtaining a PhD? Well, I mentioned, if you do a journal-based PhD program, you have to come forward with quality papers who do qualify to be admitted and accepted by academic journals, and preferably also in journals which do blind review selection. Could the private sector research be further narrowed down to some subsector research, like would quantitative method be required for the PhD paper? So no, it's not necessary to focus on quantitative or only on qualitative, but it's possible. That depends very much on the topic and also your background and what is feasible. Ideally, most of the papers are applying a mixture of these two. To what extent is the executive PhD program structures compared to a DBA, for example? Well, as MSM, we ran for a couple of years the DBA program. I think the difference with this PhD program is that it's structured in the sense that 4 times a year we are scrutinizing and having also opportunities of supervisors working with the different students, but also trying to have the students becoming part of a body of knowledge, and that you're also learning from your peers in the process. And we also bringing in just moments of focusing on topics like, if required, like research techniques, analytical tools to analyze your data, etc.
Okay, I see a question about student visa. Since this is a part-time program, if you have to come to the on-campus sessions in Maastricht, then you can travel on a tourist visa. So there is no permanent residence permit possible. And there are also no scholarships available for the program.
Next.
Yeah, and then I see here a question, Tobias, that is master at the University of Liverpool. If your program, if your master was completely taught in English, then we don't need any proof of English, so you don't have to do an English test.
Next.
What else do we hear?
Yeah, that's for you, Iris.
What does certified copy of diplomas mean? Certified by the Dutch government. Mostly you will have a stamp on your master degree. So what I would advise you, and that's the one we need, and sometimes if the degree is in another language, then it is translated into English. So I would advise, if you want any further assistance there, then just send me the diploma you have, and then I can look into it and give you some advice there.
Is there any upper age limit for a candidate? Iris, I don't think so.
No, there's not no age limit.
For my understanding, expression of interest would already ask where you would conduct the research. Are there any funds available during the program for that research within, or is this self-sponsored?
There are no scholarships available, so you have to you have to self-sponsor or find a sponsor or self-funding.
Expression of interest is not accessible on the portal now. Is this correct, Iris?
We will look into that. If the link is no, we will check the link for the expression of interest.
Other than the workshops, what is the frequency of supervisor and student interaction? It depends a little bit on the students and the professors itself. But so some of the students and professors I know, they meet once a week, and others do once a month. So that depends a little bit. But as a program management, we also try to keep an eye on that there is a regular contact between students and supervisors, as we will also would like to see progress. Is paper publication a requirement for obtaining a PhD? I think we said enough about that.
Yeah. And then again, there was a question about if there are any partners where students can get funding. As far as I'm informed, no scholarships.
Again, there is no age limit for application. Yeah. How many PhD students are expected to start the program? Yeah, that depends a little bit on the quality of submissions. I think that this time we started with 8, and next year, yeah, I think so. Between, what would we say, depends 5 and 15, depending on the quality of what we get in from the different from students. Do you have early offers, Iris?
There's no, we don't have any early bird fees or discounts or whatever. So the fees you saw, that is the price. So even if you submit your application before what is stated here, before August, there will be no reduction of the tuition fee. Then there is a question: when I'm self-employed, how can I submit a reference letter? I think you can always look into somebody from where you studied, and maybe from somebody, you know, in a previous job or whatever. And if you have any problems there that you're not able to submit 2 reference letters, then we can talk about that.
Next question: is the Executive PhD program designed for professionals with extensive work experience, looking to bridge the theory-practice gap in public sector financial management? Well, in general, yeah, the Executive PhD program is catered for those who do work, and those ones who work, and mainly, I think all our candidates are well, in general, are 30 plus. Then how about someone like me who is fully working in the public sector and looking forward to adopt private sector style in mainstream public education sector in particular? Yeah, I think that qualifies. Then anything else, Iris?
No, all the other questions, Tobias is putting the link here to the expression of interest. So I guess when he puts the link here that it's working, but again, I will double check that. So there are, as far as I can see, there are no further questions in the Q&A.
Then I think we're going to close this session, and if you have still any questions, please feel free to send us an email by MSM PhD admissions at maastrichtuniversity.nl. I would like to thank everybody joining this online webinar, and we're looking forward to see your application coming in. Thank you very much. Also, the MSM team. Thank you.